G'day guys, before we hop into today's vlog, I just want to remind you to hit that subscribe button. From now on, I'm going to be putting out Day-Leigh vlogs every single day. I'm going to be tracking my process, playing these 1-2-6 max games, hopefully moving up in stakes. But even if I don't, you'll get to watch me fall on my face every single day on this YouTube channel. So make sure you hit subscribe so you get the new videos as they come out every single day. For now, onto the vlog. G'day everyone, welcome back to the vlog. It's currently about 8 AM here in Melbourne and I've just woken up, so you might be able to put together that I did have a bit of a sleep in. It was accidental. I did actually sleep through my alarm, unfortunately. So I'm going to have to be put back about 2 hours on the day. Not going to stress too much about it though. I'm just going to get the feed in straight away, then we're going to get to the poker. Don't have much time to waste now, so let's go. It's 8:30 AM at the moment. I've had my feed, feeling better after the feed. Gonna hop in and play some poker now. We're gonna play 5 tables today. As always, gonna focus on my opponents, try and exploit their strategies as optimally as I can. One of the things I'm gonna focus on in particular is I'm gonna try and 4-bet and 5-bet bluff more aggressively than I typically do. Like I said in yesterday's vlog, I have noticed that people are only really getting in pocket aces and pocket kings pre-flop. So if I notice a good spot in when someone else is 3-bet and I do have an ace blocker or a king blocker, I'm probably going to be pretty liberal about trying to bluff them off of their 3-bet hands, just because over the past few sessions, I've really noticed people are playing a lot tighter and they're just not getting it in as often as they typically would. So got to focus on that in particular, but otherwise, playing my regular game, looking at my opponent's strategies, trying to find ways to exploit it. Let's get in the game. Welcome back everyone. It is currently 4:45 in the afternoon here in Melbourne and I've just wrapped up my third poker session for the day. Ended up playing a total of 6 hours and 1 minute today for a grand total of 1,420 hands. So unfortunately, as you can tell, I did not hit my daily goal of the 1,500 hands. And not to make excuses on SY, because obviously it is my own fault, but there are a few reasons that explain it. The first of which is I couldn't play 5 tables today. The same issue I was having with my laptop yesterday in terms of my computer started to freeze when I did open the 5th table. Same thing was happening again this morning, so I decided to just stick to the 4 tables, which obviously is going to make it harder to hit that daily goal of the 1,500 hands. That's the first reason why. Second reason why is obviously I was pretty close to hitting the 1,500. It would have taken me less than half an hour to get the rest of the hands in, but I decided to leave early just because I was on tilt. And you'll see why I was on tilt when we get to the hand history later today. But that was definitely one of the reasons why I didn't put in as much volume today. Obviously, I'm pretty disappointed with it. Also pretty disappointed with the results from today. I did end up losing 105 over all the sessions combined, unfortunately. In terms of my gameplay grade from today's sessions, at first I was a bit torn on what to actually give myself from today, but I ultimately did land on a C+ for today's sessions. First thing I want to downgrade myself for might be a bit obvious, but obviously I did not get in enough volume today. The goal is 1,500. I fell so close to it. And the reason I did stop early and didn't just push through the extra half hour was because of tilt. And whilst I do think it is good that I didn't just play half an hour whilst I was on tilt, I'm still upset at myself that I let myself get tilted and it just forced me to stop playing and cost me that volume that I look to get in every day. So obviously going to have to downgrade myself for that. In terms of things that I actually did like about how I played this session, I do think that most of my decisions made in the hands was pretty well thought through and logical. I said at the start of the session that I did want to start mixing in more 4-bet bluffs just because I did notice no one in the player pool is getting any handle in pre-flop that isn't aces or kings. And that was the same thing today. I actually got stacked twice when I got ace king suited all in against once against aces, once against kings, and then I did not see anyone else get in 100 big blinds pre-flop with any other hand that wasn't aces or kings. So that was something that I did. It's still carrying through even to today. And so of course I did use the opportunity to mix in those 4-bet bluffs. I think 6 times I used an ace and a king blocker, 2 4-bet bluff, and it got through every single time. So I'm really glad it is something I picked up on, and definitely gonna mix it in my game going forward until I do see someone actually call off with pocket queens pre-flop. Then I'll have to readjust. But for now, something that's definitely working for me in this player pool. Having said that though, I just can't give myself that high of a grade despite that, because of the lack of volume and the one horrible mistake I made in today's hand history. So without any further ado, let's get into that hand history and you guys can cringe with me. To be honest with you guys, I've been thinking about this hand ever since I played it. It was only about an hour ago now, but the decision I made on the river was so poor, it put me on tilt and I just had to quit the session straight away, even though I did not put in enough volume. You'll see why in a minute. Let's get into it. I'm in the low jack with Queen Jack of Hearts. I go ahead and open it up to 4, then an unknown button calls, and we are heads up to a flop of Jack 7-6 with 2 hearts. So obviously it's a great flop for us. Not only do we have a top pair, we also have a flush draw. So I go ahead and bet it. I go ahead and make it 9. Then my opponent raises. They actually go ahead and make it 25. The action's back on me here, and I think I have a pretty easy decision on this street to just call. I think raising, we're really only going to get action from stronger hands, except maybe the nut flush, which we are actually ahead of. But obviously if my opponent is bluffing with a flush draw or a straight draw or something like that, we want him to keep punting at it. And if they do have a set, not looking to get all in against the set yet, or even 7-6 is 2 pair as well. So I just call here, then we are heads up to a turn. The turn's a 2 of clubs. I go ahead and check it over to the aggressor. They keep on aggressing. They go ahead and bet 61. So obviously a pretty large size bet. It's the size of the pot. And the action's back on me here. It's kind of interesting because I think the fact that they did bet so big is indicative of they do have a very strong range of hands. What I mean by that is pocket 7s, pocket 6s, 7-6 suited, but also a bunch of stuff like the nut flush draw, so ace-x of hearts. Obviously 9-8 of hearts is also a straight flush draw, so it's 5-4 of hearts. So they're all definitely hands my opponent could be taking this line with. So obviously when your opponent does have a strong range of hands, that would incline me to want to fold. But the thing is, I actually really like calling with this hand specifically. That's because, one, if my opponent does have a hand that's a set or 2 pair, I have outs to improve to a flush and beat that hand. If my opponent is bluffing with one of those like nut flush draw type hands, we're actually ahead because we do have top pair here. So for that reason, I think I have to call with this hand in particular. I do call. If I did have a hand like King 10 of hearts, for example, that was a flush draw, I would probably lean towards folding when my opponent does bet this big. On this street, I throw in the call, and we're still heads up to the river, and the river is the Jack of Clubs, which is actually a very interesting card because now we make trips on the river. Having said that though, I really don't like leading here just because my opponent still has that really strong range of hands, a lot of which include sets, which obviously I'll lose to anyway. But if I do just bet out here, my opponent's going to fold all of his like misdraws and stuff that he might potentially consider bluffing with. So for that reason, even though we do make trips on the river, I actually think that this is a mandatory check still, considering the hands in my opponent's range. So I go ahead and check it. Then my opponent keeps betting. They go ahead and make it 183. Obviously a really gross spot here. Like I said, my opponent's turn range was made up of a bunch of sets and those draws. But the thing is, when my opponent bets pot on the river, are they really going to do that with like a nut flush draw that missed type hand? I mean, it's possible, but they probably wouldn't use that hand just because it blocks me from having called down with the nut flush draw. I think it's much more likely that they do have a hand that has some showdown value. Obviously pocket 7s is possible, obviously pocket 6s is possible. I think maybe it's somewhat possible that they're turning 7-6 into a bluff since they did get counterfeit, but I think that's unlikely. That hand might just check back. So if I really do think about it, I think they mostly just have a full house here every time. So I guess it's just the hand they have, right? And I should go ahead and fold. I think that's what I should have done. I made a big mistake. I actually decided to call. In the moment, I was a bit upset just because, as I mentioned briefly earlier in the vlog, there was a few hands where I got ace-king suited all in pre-flop and lost. And this is so silly that I let those, cooler situations affect me and upset me, but I just felt tilted, felt like I didn't want to fold in this spot because I did make such a strong hand on the river. But that's absolutely ridiculous. I should be thinking about the relative strength of my hand versus Villain's range. And Villain's range is so strong on the river here, I think I can definitely get away from trips and not have to worry about it. I was on tilt and I made a really silly call here though. And then of course my opponent does show pocket sixes. So that was obviously a very large river bet that I absolutely should have been able to get away from all the time. And I'm very disappointed with myself for paying off the 183. Interested to hear what you guys think though. Hop down in the comments below, let me know. Do you think it is ever possible that my opponent is bluffing with a missed draw? Because if they are, they actually have a bunch of bluffs in their range. Like obviously there's, you know, ace two of hearts, ace three of hearts, ace four of hearts, etc. that they could be potentially bluffing with. So if you take that into account, maybe I should be calling with my trips on the river here. Curious to hear what you guys think about that. Do you like calling on the river, or do you think you can get away from the river and just fold? Let me know in the comments below. Always happy to hear what you guys think about these hands. That's going to wrap up the vlog for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate you sticking all the way to the end of the video. Believe it or not, that actually helps the channel grow. But something that helps the channel grow as well is clicking that subscribe button. If you haven't already, please hit it. Get these daily vlogs as they come out. Really would appreciate you hitting the subscribe button, and obviously appreciate everyone who has already hit the subscribe button. For now, I'm out of here. Peace.